Hi everybody, it's Suzanne in Ohio here. Hey, I have a new project I'm working on in between, still working on Roxy Creations or Roxy's Journal of Stitchery. So I got off into a rabbit hole and this project has turned out so fun and so cute. I want to show it to you. So what I've ended up making are some stuffed hearts. Um, Now there's hearts everywhere. I have a lot of them saved on my Pinterest board, but I went to a antique shop the other day, and someone I know had made some hearts, and it just said to me, "Oh, why don't you just make some?" So I've had the idea in my mind for a long time, and lo and behold, I have all the pieces and parts here that I need. So I just want to show you what I've come up with. I have 3 completed, 5 more all done except the, stringers and the enhancements. I'm going to show you them too. And I'm also going to show you a little bit of how-to with tricks and tips, things that I've learned. It's an all-around gift and piece of decor. You can finish them off in any type of theme that you want. So for starters, what I have here is I have this one that I've named them. I call this one Patch My Heart because what I started out with was this flannel background patchwork, the same thing that I made my bunnies out of. And because we're all doing embroidery, if you're in that stitchery challenge, um, I have some decorative embroidery at every juncture. And so that was my base. And because patchwork is typically kind of vintage and country, I finished this one off by adding some pieces and parts of uh, old embroidery pieces, doilies. I made some yo-yos, and even here on the side I was able to incorporate in the seam some crocheted lace from a dresser scarf, and same thing over here, I included that in the seam allowance. So on the back what I used was a rescued block that I found at the thrift store, and it was so nicely done with embroidery I thought, oh, I have to use that. And I made my hearts to hang. So there's several different ways you can hang them. But what I did was buttons here on each shoulder and curly Q wire. And then I have a collection of stringers, fabric and yarn and different things, even some eyelash yarn in some of them. So this heart I call Patch My Heart because this is typically crazy patchwork. All of this, the underlayment, the foundation. Okay, that's my first one. And by the way, I did distress them slightly with some coffee, real light and real mild. And I think it actually adds to them. And then this one is, I called this one A Song in My Heart because the bird and I had a piece of music printed on fabric. And then I added a bead dangle to this one. And then this has some of my dyed tablecloth lace and a doily and dyed lace and another doily up here and more dyed lace. It's just so adorable. The foundation is a piece of bark cloth. It was a curtain panel that I found at the thrift store, and I just love the print and I love bark cloth. This is not as rough a bark cloth as some that I have, but it worked out just beautiful for this. The bird is gold, but the accent color is purple because of this lavender in the print, and I had a piece of gorgeous um, crocheted lace from a handkerchief, and I put it in the seam allowance right there. So with the bird and the music and the little jewels, it turned out just beautiful. And you can see this tassel has some eyelash yarn in it as well as other fibers. And this one was Song in My Heart. Now this one, I called it Unlock My Heart because what I did here, I'll get myself organized, I put a zipper. The under fabric is this print with birds on it. And I put the bluebirds showing right here in the opening, and the zipper unzips and it moves up and down if you want to do that, but no need to really. Once you get it in the place you want, you just leave it. And I put a lock on the zipper pull and a little key hanging real close by. This one also has some beads and some scraps of fabric on a big safety pin right here. And I had a bluebird feather because we got bluebirds over here. I put the bluebird feather here, and then just a bunch of greenery and buttons. And if you look real close, we have a little wren right here, and there's a blue jay over here. So the play on words is very thought-provoking. Unlock my heart, because there's the lock. And the back of it, canvas with a tiny bit of distressing coffee stain on it. So I just love this, and I'll be doing more with a zipper. I know people do a lot of fun, interesting things with zippers, but I happen to find this one at the thrift store. They're always there, but I wanted ones with metal teeth, not the plastic. So there's my little creation there. Now I'm going to show you some others that are done, but all they are is, hold on a second, they're just not, sorry, they're just not stitched up the side. I had to go ahead and make this video this morning because it's my only chance for the next couple days. And then I will get these stitched up the side and get all the enhancements on it. So this heart is so beautiful in real life. I call it, I don't know what I'll actually name it, but it is timeless beauty, of course. And it has a combination of beautiful, here's Battenberg, a white crocheted, some dyed tablecloth, some more Battenberg with blue, and some blue doily over here. And this foundation piece of white under here, that's very, very old. And then we have a crocheted, and if you can make heads or tails of this little, I don't know if this is needlepoint or crewel, but either way, she's a darling. She wasn't finished around the edge, and I don't care. I ragged it off a little bit around the canvas wefting, and she's that little 18th century or 17th century even little woman in this burgundy dress, green shawl, so on and so forth. So she has also a red backing to match the front. They all don't have a matching back. I don't think it matters, but I used what I had. That's what it's all about, isn't it, girls? All right, here's another timeless beauty. And this one is another piece of needlepoint or crewel, just done up so beautiful. It just turned out so pretty. I have all these dyed laces that are a takeoff of the colors in the crewel, and a piece of a doily here, and these beautiful crocheted pansies in an ecru color, a putty color. And This one, once it gets the jewels on it and the streamers, that's just going to be a knockout, I think. So I have to finagle here to get them all out of the bag, get them up here. They all have a different feel to them, depending on what kind of theme you like. This one, of course, it says spring. And the little story that it's telling is it's time for flowers, and here's your watering can. This one, I printed off the clock on fabric and I painted the watering can on, I think it was on muslin, but I used Inktense pencils. And I have a whole collection of those in different colors, and this one just happened to go beautifully. So, vintage doilies and dyed laces. And this one has a backing of a flower print. And I liked how that turned out. I like all of it. Actually, I'm liking this whole project because I haven't had any fails yet. You know, when you're working on something and it isn't going right, it can be pretty discouraging. But this one is, I left as much of the bark cloth showing as I could. Uh, some dyed lace, doilies, and different things on here. But the little star of the show is this little goldfinch. And I just bordered the applique around with little fibers and textiles and in colors that blend with the print. So he's pretty darn cute. But overall, in general, it does say spring. Just because of the colors, I think. And here's another similar one that does similar thing. It just, it says spring because of the colors and the birds. And this is the feature color here is kind of a cranberry because the bird had a lot of that in it. And it has some Battenberg lace, tablecloth, dyed laces, this little fringe of a doily up here sticking out of the seam allowance. Very, very cute. And backed in a red paste. And those are, now let's see, 3, I guess, yeah. That's my 8 that's completed or nearly completed. Now, I want to give you some tips and tricks if you're interested and show you what I've learned so far. Okay, first thing, since I'm looking right at it, is every one of these will have a little tag. So I had some printed off sayings from some Valentines that I made last year. And they're all different. Some of them are famous quotes, some of them are scriptures or just excerpts from poems, whatever. So I mounted them like this, and I'll just tie onto them and hang them on the heart. They can be used or not. I have a couple little thingies here that you'll understand in a minute why I'm going to put them on a tag. I'll be sewing them onto a couple tags. And these are prints that I did of my own original watercolors, shrunk them down, and printed them on fabric. And I just have had them laying around for so long, and I'm using up my stuff. All right, so let's get to the point of how to do this. And let's see if I can tell this in a reasonable order here. First of all, the shape of your heart and the size is up to you. But what I ended up doing was I first cut out this heart. I think it even says heart number 1 somewhere here on it. Yeah, it does. And you can see that it's a long, narrow heart with not very fat shoulders. They're kind of upward and pointing, and that has its own kind of look. And I made a couple out of that pattern. Then I adjusted that pattern a little bit, and I fattened it out here on the shoulder. And it gave it a slightly different look. And then I needed something bigger because some of the elements that I want to put on them were going to be too crowded. So what I did was I fattened it in here a little bit and out this way. But basically now this heart here will end up being about 10 by 10 after it's sewn and stuffed. It's probably more like 13 by 13 right now, but a lot of the area, the whole thing shrinks once you start stuffing it. So keep that in mind if you want to draw a heart. And if you're going to draw your own heart, if you want a true more heart shape like this one is, I want to point something out to you. When you have a heart that you want to, I don't know, you want it to look more like a traditional heart, this corner here should almost be a 45-degree angle, a 90-degree angle. If it's folded, it's 45. So, in other words, a 90-degree angle is the same as a corner of a piece of paper. See, my paper's there, almost exactly 90 degrees. Then 90 and a half, if you fold it in half, is 45. And that will give you a nice bottom to your heart if that's the shape you want. Now, I want to show you this one that is in process here because some of the hints that I want to give you, I had to go ahead and I sewed it up this morning and I left an opening, and I might attempt to turn it to show you one more helpful hint. But the first thing I want to say is, whatever you're working on, put a backing on it before you start adding your elements. And you can see that this one has a backing of just plain muslin. And then when you cut out your other back, the true back, cut it bigger than you need it to be, and don't bother cutting it precisely because everything tends to move around a little bit. And if you've got bulky elements on the inside, and I say on the inside because you have to lay them face to face, right sides together before you sew, then you will want to leave an opening in the side about as big as your hand. Works good. You can work with something smaller, but as wide as your palm is, and that gives you plenty of room to move around. And use the stick and put your stuffing in there. Make sure you have all your corners and your shoulders puffed out the way you want them. Now, you might want a soft fill. You might want something flatter and squishier. That's fine. But I wanted mine tight and firm. Now, when you're sewing around, be sure and leave your opening. Keep going off screen here. Be sure and leave your opening. But when you come around into the V of the heart, that's what I really want to show you. I learned this from a YouTube video. I don't know when, but boy, does it work good. So when you come around into the V, instead of coming like that into a V, don't do it. You want to, I'm going to draw this on a piece of paper. What you want, let's try it here first. I don't know how good this is showing up. But you want to come down and you want to form a little flat spot. Now let's see if I can do that with a pen and make that more visible for you. And let's get that out of the way. I'll pull you down here just a minute to show you. So when you're coming down, come down far enough and then straight over and then back up and follow your curve. And I double stitch in all these corners, right here and here. And I'm working on a machine that has that reverse mode on it, that it doesn't stop exactly when you tell it to. So a couple times I had stitches out further than I needed them. And so as I was turning it, I just took my little seam ripper and ripped those stitches out of the way because they shouldn't have been there in the first place. Okay, so back to our little example here. Watch that and watch that. Double stitch in all the corners. And so, let's see, I had something else I wanted to tell you. Okay, it's about your elements on the inside. Now you can see that I cut my, wow, I'm not doing good today. Some days I just don't. I cut my, what's going to be the back of my heart, I cut it big because I've had it scooch up as I sewed on it. And if you've got it cut precisely, then you got to worry about matching all the corners every single time while you're going around. Let me see if I can find a pair of scissors here. I know I've got pinking shears. So what I'm going to do is trim this off real quick. But that ain't going to work. Oh, you'd think I'd know by now to get all my supplies ready before I start. But I was in a little tither because I knew I was pressed to do this. Now, on this piece, I've showed you how to sew it with this little square bottom to it. But when you cut it, you're only going to cut down a little ways, and then you're going to veer to the left and the right, and then clip to the corner. So let's try, on this piece of paper, let's try to show you that. So you've got this sewn the way it's supposed to be, with two little square corners about 4 or 5 stitches apart. That depends totally on the size of your heart. But you're going to clip down a little ways like that, and then you're going to come over toward that corner and toward that corner. And believe me, after you turn it, it'll just look like a normal V. And let's trim off this excess, because once I turn it, whoops, wrong way, I want to show you something that you have to do on the inside, or can do, depending on what your style is and what your elements are. Let me see, can I turn that and just, I could always turn it back again. Let's do that. So this one's going to be hard to turn because of the elements that I have on it. And you're going to see that in a second. This one is a special compilation of some appliques that I made. And I made them over the years as I was working on different things, and I had pieces and parts, and luckily I had some of those here with me. If you've seen my other videos, you know I'm here in temporary housing with my sister, which has been a joy for almost going on a year now. I wasn't real thrilled about it at first, and but there has to be a reason for everything, right? So it gave me some time with her and my other sister, because she's a permanent resident here. And then we have we've had some fun times and some trying times, and try to help each other every day with different things. So I'm just pushing this out roughly with my hands, and you can see I did not snip the V, and I'll turn it backwards and do that. But here's what I wanted to show you for the helpful hands. Okay, so you get some idea of what this composition is. Um, there's an applique feather up here, watering can, 2 leaves of ivy, the tools, and you'll see in a minute there's mushrooms under there. So I wanted this lace, which is an old doily that I dyed with alcohol ink. I wanted that to hang off the edge. So when you want something to hang off the edge, you've got to make sure you keep it up and out of your way while you're sewing. So just pin it up, or in a couple cases I basted it with some real bright colored embroidery thread so I'd know which threads to pull out. Now the stems to the mushrooms aren't sewed down yet. I wanted to wait until I thoroughly pushed the heart out, and then that way they wouldn't be too close to my sewing edge. So we've got these 2 cute little mushrooms here, and then just some greenery, and the brown, purpley brown, picks up all the colors in the watering can, and it gives a beautiful composition. And then this one will have some little garden things hanging on the tassels, and maybe something else. Whatever thoughts I have are confined that day. But right now it's just beautiful as is. Now, because I had pre-made all my appliques, I did have to stitch them all down by hand. Everything on all my things are done by hand except for the stitch that goes around the heart. I work much better by hand. I can stitch slow and think as I go, and it lends itself to my creativity because as I'm stitching, then I get ideas. Now, not every single project is all by hand. The machine has its place in my work, but not everything. Okay, now you can see that composition right there. And let me show you a couple more in progress in the beginning stages. That way, if you want to attempt anything of your own, you can. So I've just got some scraps here, and those will be tags. Save all your scraps pertaining to your project, and then if you put a tag on it, it'll match. So let's just open these up. Let me see if I have the one I really wanted to show you. Well, darn, who knows where that is? Okay, well, so much for that. Okay, this one I found another piece of crewel or needlepoint, whatever that is, and I had a print off of an old advertisement, and it's already on well-worn muslin, and I backed it on this fabric, which gives it a very country look. And then what I'll do is set this aside until I see the pieces and parts or the doilies or whatever it is that I want to add to it. And that's just kind of a word for the creative part of you. Even if you're doing junk journals, you get your stuff together and make a pile, put it in a basket for any given theme. You just, unless you want it to be very eclectic, it takes me a while. I don't just jump into it. I have my little piles of stuff that I think will go, and then as I'm rooting through my stuff, I can find more and more. So that's one idea in the making. And here's another one. And I've said before, I found these probably 1920s, 1930s, what was going to be a Dresden plate. I found these pieces unfinished. Well, in this stage, but they weren't on a quilt. I found these at an Mennonite relief sale where the women donate any and everything that they're not using. So I know that I'm going to put these on here. I've got these old embroidery pieces laying here, and that'll become part of it. And then, of course, I can always add yo-yos, hexies, doilies, lace, but there's what it looks like at this given point. And then here's another one, again on a different background. This is on ticking, beige ticking. I'm going to adjust my camera a little bit because it is tilting backwards. I got to do something about that. And a ticking background, some more of these, and a little piece of embroidery that goes with the shades of blue. So that's in the making. And then I knew I wanted to make some with pockets. So I have camel colored canvas back here, and then a piece of this ticking, which I'll edge it off and put something on the front of the pocket and put something up here, and then that gives me a pocket to put something like a miniature journal or a replication from an old all the stuff we use, postcard, all the stuff that we use in our junk journals. And again, same thing, canvas background, ticking pocket, same thing there. And then I have my next heart ready with no idea. Okay, now before I leave you, I'm going to put that right there just for you to look at a second. I'm going to see if I can find that other heart that I'll be stitching on it today. Boy, you guys would feel sorry for me if you could see where I'm working. Well, because it's somewhere in all of this mess, beautiful mess, I might say, but I can't find it. So you'll just have to wait till the next video for me to show you how it looks. I'll get some of it stitched on today, and I'll get this one stuffed out and all the others moving further along. So I hope I've inspired you. You might want to make some hearts for gifts, keepsakes, memorials, consolation gifts, whatever, for whatever reason or no reason. They are so fun. And what this really does is it gives you a surface on which to create. Now, we've all created things a lot on the fronts of our junk journals, but not everybody sees a junk journal, and if you have a good composition and you want to make it a showcase, you can put it on something like a heart or even on the front of those fabric baskets. And I have another video on some of the fabric baskets that I've made. And it gives you a place to showcase a beautiful composition, and it's usable, meaningful, decorative, whatever you want it to be. Now you can make these smaller or even larger, depending on what you're working with and who you're going to give it to and what they're going to do with it. So I encourage you to create, and don't throw anything away. My sister, who's a throwawayer, that's what I want to show you. Okay, don't go away. I've got two gorgeous hearts to show you that she made. So as she was putting her hearts together, she realized if I had just the tiniest little pieces and things of what she wanted and needed. So when she saw this idea coming together, she decided to make a birthday gift. So she made two matching hearts. And by the way, we found the tulle fabric. It's Yardley brand. We found it at the thrift store. And at that moment in time, I was keeping my eye open for things for hearts. And so I found a huge valance or valance, depending on how you pronounce it, and a big pillow sham, all in this blue twa, and I got all that fabric for $2, I think. Maybe it was less because it was dollar day the day we went there. And I took my seam ripper and took it all apart, and we put everything through the washing machine. So she made this for her daughter for her birthday, two of these, and they are stunning. And she used a solid canvas back too. And look at these embellishments. They have little seashells on them. She used this famous quote by Mark Twain. This one says, to get the full value of a joy, you must have someone to divide it with. Piece of Battenberg and doilies. This piece of doily coming out of the seam allowance, and this one up here on top as well. Okay, and that's the one up close. And this one, the seashells hang on this little gold wire over this button, some eyelash yarn, and this, oh, okay, I'm going to say it, this weird little something, it's some kind of a weaving. I don't even know the name of that, but there was hundreds of these in a package at the thrift store for $1. And I love the color and the texture, and even not using it in this beautiful gold ecru color, I could spritz them with alcohol ink. And by the way, I'm going to do a video real soon and show you how I spritz all my textiles with alcohol ink and the gorgeous results that you can get. And this was a special, beautiful edging of crochet on a doily. And she put it on this coming right out of the seam allowance. And down here is one of these beautiful little pansies, crochet pansies. She put a button and some tulle behind it and some eyelash yarn. And I'm telling you, in real life, these are just stunning. And she hasn't put the hanger on it yet, but we saw a real nice idea. When you don't need all the curly Q and you want just a different kind of hanger, I'm going to draw you a little picture of what we saw. So if you have a heart, let's just draw it on here, and you want to form, well, let's pull you down just a little bit. So your heart is here, and you need a hanger for it. You can either add your buttons right here, sort of on the back side, but real close to the top, and then put your curly Q wire. But what I saw was a cute little design where they had a pretty stiff wire, and they bent it like that. So I'll do that again so you can see. It was curly cued here. It came up to a point, and it came back down and curly cued over here. And all they did was stitch it with some heavy thread right there, right on the top of the shoulders of the heart. So that's an idea for you. Okay, one more helpful hint. I almost forgot it. And I have two pieces of paper here in which to explain this. I was trying to explain it to my sister, and I guess I wasn't doing a good job, but let me see if I can get this. All right, if you just lay, what we're going to do is pretend like this is a piece of fabric, okay? And the lines represent the cross grains. On the grain this way and on the grain this way. Either way on a piece of fabric is pretty stable. But when you're cutting out a heart, the tendency is to fold your fabric and then lay your heart here and come down here. Okay, that's fine. But the grain of your fabric is going to cross here. horizontal, and that leaves almost all these angles on a bias. Okay, that's fine. But you don't want to cut the back and the front both like that, because where you match up a bias to a bias, it's going to stretch like crazy even after you sew it. So here's a little trick. Lay one piece of your heart straight up and down, because you've got the cross grain horizontal and the vertical straight grain. Vertical straight grain and cross grain horizontal. Both are straight. Both of them are fairly stable and will not stretch too much, depending on your fabric. But everything on the bias is going to stretch. So here's how you get around that. Cut one straight up and down, either on the horizontal grain or the vertical grain. Either one, it doesn't matter. And then when you cut out the next one, I'm going to show you here. I'm going to cut this little heart out as if you've already cut out your heart. When you lay it, cut out your backing or your front. As long as they're opposite, it doesn't matter. It's going to lay different, and those grains are going to help stabilize it. So I've got this cut on the cross grain. But when I go to cut out the other piece, I'm going to lay it in the diagonal. And so what happens here is you can easily see the straight of the grain is here and here on one heart. And then if you lay it in the corner, then the straight of the grain is here and here and here. So these are the stable sides. And when you cut them opposite each other, the straight of the grain on, let's say on this and on this, will stabilize these stretchy bias grains right here. I hope that makes sense. Put one straight up and down on your fabric, put the other one in a corner with stable grains going up and down, left and right. And then when you sew them together, you will have a much stabler heart. Now, the reason that's important is when you go to stuff it, if you don't, then, and both layers are on the bias, then they're going to stretch like crazy. So that's your last helpful little hint today. I hope you'll make some hearts. And remember, they are just a surface for creating. And start your projects. Think of it as getting everything together to tell a little story. Think of it that way. If I hadn't had all my appliques in the same story, I could have come up with some other pieces and parts. I just happen to have all these to match. It says garden, it says spring, it says woodland right here with the mushrooms or ground or dirt or however you want to think of it. And of course, hers says with her seashells and this blue, even though there's no ocean scenery in this, you get the whole idea because it is blue. It's blue and beige, and then she has all these seashells hanging on it. You can hang anything on it. You can hang feathers, you can make anything and use anything. There is literally no end to what kind of embellishments you can put on it. So take a trip to the thrift store and see what you can find, and pick yourself up a bunch of little doodads and put yourself together a heart that tells a story. And if nothing else, I challenge you to make one and give it away to somebody. You have no idea what it might say to somebody else just to get a little gift like that. All right, thanks for listening. I appreciate it. I'll talk to you soon with another update on the hearts. And coming soon is my video on my butterfly for March, which obviously I'm not going to get it done before the end of the month, but soon, soon, it's coming along. All right, thanks for watching. If you enjoyed or learned anything, please give me a thumbs up and come back soon. Bye bye.